With Bad Boys Ride or Die opening in theaters, I'm going to be looking back at some of our favorite details and factoids from this original iconic movie. And yes, my shirt is open in tribute to this iconic moment from Bad Boys that made Will Smith a movie star. First off, Bad Boys was actually written as a comedy that was meant to star John Lovitz and Dana Carvey. So think like, Wayne's World, a detective story, okay? And when that didn't work out, Michael Bay was like, you know what, let's go with Martin Lawrence. And Martin Lawrence recruited Will Smith. And the dynamic between these two sitcom stars whose shows, Martin and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, were actually on air at the time that the movie was released, that basically made the movie. And a lot of the gags in the movie were largely improvised by Martin and Will. This is their comic banter building up from a garbage script. And just building from that, Bad Boys was essentially the first studio action movie starring two black leads. So think about it, because before Bad Boys, you had Eddie Murphy sending up the white environment in Beverly Hills Cop. You had the chocolate and vanilla pairings of 48 Hours, Lethal Weapon, Last Boy Scout. But you never had two black leads fronting a mainstream studio action movie. The movie gets this lineage of black action movie stars that Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are trailing behind. Because throughout the movie, you hear the references to
Wesley Snipes, Passenger 57.
I want to meet who whooped Shaft's ass.
Your friend Action Jackson over here and fine. Just had a little run-in with your friend Jim Brown over here, but I'm fine.
And that vibe also leaked over to the soundtrack, because you also didn't have studio action movies with a soundtrack containing Warren G, Tupac, Biggie, The Brat, and then of course the iconic Diana King song Shy Guy, which Michael Bay actually shot the video for.
I don't want somebody loving everybody. Shy guy, the kind of guy who'll only be mine.
And speaking of music, we gotta shout out Mark Mancina's iconic score because it bangs, okay? Mark Mancina, this is the guy that also made the score for Speed and then Twister. Mark Mancina, Hans Zimmer at that time were kind of like the kings of action movie scores. Hans Zimmer, of course, went on to become this superstar Oscar-nominated composer. Mark Mancina deserves his due too. Now, we can't talk about Bad Boys without talking about Michael Bay. This is Michael Bay's first movie. This is a movie that would establish his swooping, low-angle cinematography, that kind of bombastic style where every shot looks like it was made to show up in the trailer. And really, the iconic shot from Bad Boys, that shot where Martin Lawrence and Will Smith are rising up after a car chase, Michael Bay has said that he made that shot with the trailer in mind. And really, that just explains his whole aesthetic. And this is the aesthetic you will see in movies like The Rock and Transformers, and it would essentially change the way action movies were made. All of a sudden, we are no longer prioritizing spatial coherence in the same way that we saw in Spielberg or James Cameron movies. Now, all of a sudden, it's just about great looking shots. Doesn't matter if you have any idea of what is happening when. One of the most iconic moments in Bad Boys, the one that was really featured in the trailer, is when Martin Lawrence says, "You forgot your boarding pass." That scene almost never happened. Michael Bay actually had to put up $50,000 of his own money to shoot that scene where he gets to blow up a plane and Martin Lawrence can drop his iconic line, "You forgot your boarding pass." And speaking of Michael Bay's aesthetic, I mean, look, before Bad Boys, the guy was a Budweiser and music video commercial director, okay? And if you want to see where Bad Boys aesthetic began, look no further than the music video for Meatloaf's "I'll Do Anything for Love."
Anything for love, and I'll be there till the final act.
Check out the sun-kissed shots of a helicopter, or these cool blue skyline shots, or the cool blue broken glass shot appearing in both the Meatloaf video and the scene where the madam is killed in Bad Boys, or the scenery with all the candles that looks exactly like the bathrooms in Club Hell. Now, one of the funny things about Bad Boys is that it was actually Martin Lawrence that had top billing. And, it makes sense because if you watch the movie, Martin Lawrence is actually the star. He's the one that takes up the most screen time. All the heavy lifting comes from him in terms of the comedy, but it's Will Smith that becomes the marquee movie star, the sexy leading man, the thirst trap running down the streets with his shirt open. Michael Bay himself will pinpoint the moment where he saw that Will Smith was the next big movie star. It is this moment. So all of this, the bombastic style, Michael Bay's own Porsche, the fascination with fast cars and hot women, and just throwing it all up there with tons of flair in a story led by people of color, I think this is what will pave the way for the Fast and the Furious movies. It's actually really interesting to see how a lot of the reviewers commenting on Bad Boys Ride or Die are saying this movie seems to be cribbing off Fast and the Furious, when really, you wouldn't really have Fast and the Furious without Bad Boys.